Okay guys, we're talking about the most iconic, most popular fragrances of all time today in this video. It's a video with 10 different fragrances, and I've got 2 women's fragrances, 2 men's fragrances, and 4 unisex fragrances in this video. And as I said, most iconic fragrances of all time. We go back in time and we got a lot of fragrances from now, from the last 5-10 years as well. So find out what they are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yeah, today we're talking about iconic fragrances, popular fragrances that have been around for a long time. Some of these are becoming very, very iconic and very, very popular fragrances, and a lot of them have been around for years and years and years. So, as I said, I have 2 feminine fragrances targeted to the ladies, 2 targeted to men, and 4 unisex, a total of 10. I will do a part 2 of this video. We'll talk about it in the bonus section. Let's go ahead and get started with the first fragrance. First 2 are feminine, second 2 are masculine, and then the rest of the fragrances are unisex. But the first fragrance I'm talking about today is from the house of Mugler. It's Angel. Angel is probably the most popular fragrance for this house. They've got flankers galore for this particular fragrance, and there is a new fragrance coming out called Angel Elixir now. It should be landing now soon, but 30 years plus, this is going strong still. This is created by Olivier Cresp from the house of Mugler, of course. It launched in 1992, and it features I guess patchouli is definitely prominent here, but this is what's considered one of the very first gourmand fragrances. So it has kind of like desserty, foody, fruity kind of notes, which is nicely, matched with that patchouli that's sparkling. It's a very sparkling fragrance for me. The patchouli in this one is very, very sparkling. It's very, very in your face, and the fragrance itself leaves a massive trail. And I think because of this reason, a lot of people learned what it's like, what it smells like off of people, and I think they either loved it and wanted a bottle or kind of didn't like it. Because I know there's many fans of Angel, and there's also many haters of Angel. Which are you? Are you a lover of Angel, or are you a hater of Angel? I do have to say that it's not like it used to be. The original Angel was much beefier, much more intense. Of course, it came out 31 years ago, so at that time, IFRA didn't even exist, so the fragrances were a lot more robust and beefy back then. Now it's thinner, but for me, it still smells like the original, just a thinner version of it, and I love it. And I love the smell of it, and I used to love smelling it on ladies. And once in a while, I'll, steal like a spritz of this one as well, because I absolutely love it. And it was so popular that, like I said, they've launched so many flankers of this one. They've got Angel Elixir coming out, and of course in 1996 they launched a male version, Angel Men, which later became Amen. But either way, Angel is the first fragrance I'm talking about today. We're moving on to the House of Chanel. It's number 5. So originally it was a parfum that launched. I'm featuring just the eau de parfum here in today's video, and it launched in 1921, and it was created by Ernest Beaux. So I actually, if I've ever mentioned, I worked in film, television, and things like that, but more music rights. So there's a film out there, a French film called Coco and Igor, I believe. I've been forgetting. It's been many years now. There's a little subplot in that video where Coco Chanel goes and has her first perfume created. So if you guys are at all into the idea of watching things like that, the rest of the film is nothing about perfume. There's a tiny little subplot, as I said. It's nice to go, discover things like that. It's mostly about Coco Chanel's, I guess, relationship with Igor Stravinsky. But this is a 1921 fragrance, launched in 1921, created by Ernest Beaux. A lot of fragrances that Ernest Beaux created for Chanel, but the only other brand I found was not a brand that everybody talks about or anyone talks about, because it's probably a very old brand. But this has a very iconic fragrance. It's not a fragrance my mom wore, although I think my grandmother wore this. This and Shalimar were her favorites, and so it just has a very recognizable smell to me. I don't know why. It just smells like something I remember smelling as I was growing up. It's just got like a lot of scent memories. I never personally have worn it, but there's something I like about it, and there's something I don't like about it. It's not one of my all-time favorite fragrances, but it does feature loads of aldehydes, iris, sandalwood, Ylang-Ylang, jasmine, vanilla, neroli, oakmoss. For me, I feel like Chanel No. 5 is kind of like the DNA of a lot of Chanel fragrances, because a lot of the fragrances do have a bit of aldehydes, and I've always associated with Chanel No. 5 because it's got that very distinct aldehydic smell. Like recently I was testing out the big bag of Chanel parfums that I had acquired in that storage unit haul, and I went through some of the fragrances in there, and some of the classics had an aldehydic touch. So I feel like the aldehydes in here is the DNA for Chanel for some reason. And whenever I smell aldehydic fragrances, first thing I remember is Chanel No. 5. So I feel like, I don't know if it was them that they came out with the usage of aldehydes, but I feel like it definitely belongs to Chanel, and it's definitely a signature for Chanel. Plus, the fact that No. 5 is so iconic and probably one of the most popular fragrances of all time, I had to highlight it here. Again, as I said, it's not one of my all-time favorite fragrances. I respect it very much, and I think it's a job well done for such a fragrance that has major longevity. Like, it's been here for over 100 years now, and it's still going strong. I think probably the most popular fragrance from Chanel, from what I hear. But either way, this is the second fragrance I'm talking about, a ladies targeted release. It's No. 5 from the house of Chanel. So those are the two ladies fragrances. Now we're switching over to men's fragrances. We've got DRAKKAR Noir here. I feel like this is definitely very, very iconic. At least for me it is. Again, all of these fragrances, for me, they're very iconic, and also I think they're still very popular fragrances. Some people might not dig them because maybe they might smell a bit tired or old, but I always have to rely back on these fragrances and kind of like visit, you know, fragrances from yesteryear to see what people wore back in those days and things like that. But for me, DRAKKAR Noir was one of my it's one of my all-time favorite fragrances, but I was going to say was one of my very first fragrances I wore with my own bottle. And when I first wore it, I was in my teens. Like, I was not even 15 yet when I first started. I got a small bottle of DRAKKAR Noir, and I really, really enjoyed its intensity, its greenness, its aromatic touch, woodiness, earthiness, all rolled into one. It had a major, major lasting power, and I think it's still staying strong. And for me, the reason I'm highlighting it here in today's video is the fact that it still smells great in its reformulation. I think it totally reminds me of what I remember smelling, but of course it has gotten much thinner. But for me, if I wanted to do, you know, a list of fragrances that I feel like still smell like they did back then, I would definitely feature DRAKKAR Noir. I think it smells like it does, or it smells like it used to. It's just the fact that it's gotten much thinner, that's the negative thing about it. But still a very iconic fragrance. I think they launched with DRAKKAR in the 70s, and then in 1982 when this launched, this became very big. It was much more successful than the original DRAKKAR from the 70s. This is a fragrance created by Pierre Wargnye, and really love his creation for this particular fragrance. But it features notes of lavender, lemon zest, patchouli, rosemary, verbena, coriander, fir balsam, juniper. So it's got earthy, woody notes, and of course aromatics and spiciness. Definitely a great barbershop fragrance. DRAKKAR Noir. I don't know how popular it is these days, but I feel like it's definitely a very, very iconic fragrance that needs to be mentioned over and over again. If you're a fan, let me know. If you're a hater, also let me know. I know it has haters. I know it has a lot of fans. So next we're going to the house of Tom Ford, another male fragrance, which is also very, very unisex. I mean, these two fragrances in the male section are so night and day different. For me, DRAKKAR Noir is very masculine, like it's a very, very masculine fragrance. But on the other hand, Tom Ford's Noir Extreme is very, very unisex. But I feel like it's a very iconic fragrance. It stood the test of time, but it's not been around here for a long time. But I feel like because it's so popular, they are making flankers of it. Obviously, there's a parfum version of it. And of course, it beat out Noir. It beat out Noir in the Eau de Toilette, and it also beat out Noir Anthracite, and it's going strong. And I feel like if it's not an iconic fragrance, it will be, but it's a very, very popular fragrance is what I should say. Launched in 2015, 5 years after the original Noir, which this is a flanker of. Created by Sonia Constant, and it features notes of kulfi, vanilla, cardamom, nutmeg, saffron, amber, woodsy notes, sandalwood. A lot of other stuff happening here. Definitely very gourmandy, but also very spicy. It's got fresh spices mixed in with warm notes, so it's got that kind of contrast to it, and it's just a very, very interesting combination of notes. Very vanillic, very gourmand, and definitely deserves to be on the list. Still going strong, as I said, and very, very unisex. In fact, if I haven't mentioned it before, I know I have. There was a women's version of this, which I don't think it's still selling. I thought it's been removed from Tom Ford website. So it was a light bit of more floral touch in comparison to this, but I felt like they were very, very similar. And that's why I feel like this is a very unisex offering. So this is Noir Extreme, and that's the fourth fragrance I'm talking about today. And moving on to the House of Frederic Malle, another very, very iconic fragrance. I feel like Portrait of a Lady deserves to be on this list, at least on the part one. This is Portrait of a Lady from Frederic Malle, launched in 2010, created by Dominique Ropion. The reason I call these iconic fragrances is because I feel like when they are copied over and over again, I mean, literally being copied over and over again because other brands want to, you know, tap into the success of these fragrances, I feel like they become iconic. They're very, very popular fragrances. And also, if there are ever flankers made and things like that, that also proves that these are very, very successful fragrances. But Portrait of a Lady is one of the most amazing smells I've ever put my nose on. It was one of those fragrances that I smelled and I wanted to bottle right away. And those are the kind of fragrances that have lasting power for me, not necessarily in performance, but lasting power in the actual fragrance smell itself. But a wonderful fragrance created by Dominique Ropion. Rose is the key here, with lots of patchouli. There's incense here, there's sandalwood, there's musk here, there's benzoin, there's cloves and raspberry. To me, it's a beautiful chypre fragrance, got ambery touches in the dry down for sure. It's a rose chypre, and I love that kind of style fragrance. It might have classic touches, but very, very modern for a classic fragrance, I think. The combination is top notch, and this definitely has many you know, alternatives, clones, and dupes and things like that, because it's just the combination of notes and that have went into this fragrance just really draws people in and makes the fragrance become very, very successful and popular. So what are the other brands going to do? They're going to, you know, kind of tap into their success. So this is Portrait of a Lady. That's the fifth fragrance I'm talking about today. So this next one, I feel like it's an iconic fragrance and a very popular fragrance, and I feel like a lot of fragrances came after this that tried to imitate this particular fragrance. Created by Jean Laporte, who launched L'Artisan Parfumeur. He sold it, later launched Maître Parfumeur Gantier. This is Ambre Presso. It launched in 1988. And for me, it's one of the best amber fragrances ever made. I feel like this is the very first amber fragrance, or one of the very first amber fragrances. In fact, I feel like it is definitely the first amber fragrance I bought in the early 2010s, which used to be in a red bottle. So I bought it and really loved it. And later on, I bought Ambre Sultan and things like that. So I feel like a lot of amber fragrances came after this, like Ambre... what's the Tom Ford Amber fragrance. I feel like it's kind of inspired by this particular fragrance, but still a very, very wonderful aromatic, spicy, resinous and ambery fragrance with light vanillic touches and balsamic touches, of course. Really a top-notch amber with amber, myrrh, lavender, tolu balsam, vanilla, peru balsam, nutmeg. So it's got the warm spices in here, also has the aromatics, so there's a bit of freshness. Definitely the nutmeg adds that warmth to the fragrance because it's very warm fragrance. But for me, it doesn't overwhelm. Nutmeg is kind of like the background spice rather than in your face spice like cinnamon or cloves. So it adds a bit of spiciness there, but then doesn't interfere with the amberiness. But a wonderful, wonderful fragrance. I definitely have to include this here. If you guys haven't gotten your nose on this one, then you should. but it's Ambre Perso from the house of Maître Parfumé Gantier. Also, stay tuned for Sunday. I'll be announcing something to do with this particular fragrance, so definitely look out for that very, very soon. All right, another kind of sort of unisex slash male targeted release. This is going to the house of Amouage. It's Interlude Man. It doesn't have the man on the name, but definitely can be worn by women. In fact, there's no rules with any of these fragrances. If you're a man and you like Chanel No. 5, wear it, please. I have no problems with it. I'll wear anything that I like the smell of if I want to wear it, kind of a thing. So Interlude Man is definitely very masculine though, but a woman can totally pull it off. I feel like a lot of the older Amouage fragrances are definitely gender bending, but definitely this one for me screams very masculine. Launched in 2012, created by Pierre Negrin, features notes of incense, opoponax, amber, oregano, leather, oud, labdanum, patchouli, black pepper. But this particular fragrance is popular, probably one of the most popular fragrances from Amouage. It's so popular that they've created two different versions of it. They've created the iris, and of course they've created the extract of this one as well. But very, very popular, and a lot of you guys think it's beast mode. I think it's very, very strong. I don't consider it a very, very beastly fragrance. I feel like it has great projection and sillage and things like that, but I've smelled things that are much stronger than this, but still a very, very strong fragrance. And I love the combination of oregano, the green, the spice, the herbal touches, aromatic touches of the oregano with the incense and opoponax. Very, very unique combination of notes that works perfectly. And I feel like definitely it's an iconic fragrance that should stick around for a lot longer than how long it's been. It's been 10 years, or now it's going on 11 years, but a wonderful fragrance. Interlude Man from the house of Amouage. The next fragrance is from the house of Goutal Paris. It's Eau d'Adrienne from 1981. Very iconic fragrance. Also very popular. I think it's one of the lemoniest fragrances out there in the niche world. If you like the idea of lemon, definitely try this one, although it has gotten thinner for me. When I first started wearing this one myself, I thought it was an overdose of tart lemons. It's almost like lemon drops, the little hard candies or lemon lozenges or whatever, or actually like a limoncello, but more on the tart side rather than a sweet touch. But I've been a fan of it since the late 90s, and I've had a bottle with me ever since then. It's created by Annick Goutal, also with Francis Kamel, and it features lemons, two types of lemons. I believe there's citron in here, there's cypress, there's grapefruit, mandarin orange, aldehydes, but very, very fresh, very, very kind of like a humid day fragrance. Like if you have a deal with humid heat and very, very hot humid days, this stuff really like cuts through that heat because it's got that tartness. It really kind of has this very, very cooling effect, and that I love about it. But it's been around forever. It's one of the earliest Goutal fragrances, or Annick Goutal fragrances, and it's still going strong, and I definitely had to highlight it today. So Eau d'Adrienne from the house of Annick Goutal. Then moving on to the house of Guerlain, it's a Spirituous Double Vanille. So this came out in 2007. I've written down as on my notes, but I thought it was a little earlier than 2007. I guess it's 2007. I could be wrong though. It's created by Jean-Paul Guerlain. This is a vanilla bomb. It's one of the best vanilla fragrances. Very, very boozy. Features notes of vanilla, benzoin, pink pepper, cedar, jasmine, incense, and ylang-ylang. For me, it's all about vanilla with benzoin, and pink pepper adds that spice. Pink pepper also complements the incense in here, and then there's some woods. For sure, there's floral touches in there. But I think it's a great fragrance. It's still, it's definitely here still. People really rave about this particular fragrance. But a fragrance that's been around for a long time. It's gone through multiple bottle iterations. When it first launched, it was in one of those flat bottles, and it had that stamp on it. I don't know if you guys remember that particular bottle. Then it went into the regular L'Art et La Métier collection, and then they added the pump to the bottles, the little bulb sprayers, and then it went back to the regular. Now we've got the really uniform bottles in this kind of like luxury collection. And still, if you are a vanilla fan, you have to get your nose on Spirituous Double Vanille. One of the best vanilla fragrances ever made, and I think it's definitely deserving to be on this list. So Spirituous Double Vanille is the 9th fragrance I'm talking about. Definitely iconic, definitely very, very popular fragrances. And then last but not least, we've got 2 fragrances on this list from 2015, and I feel like like they're so popular, they definitely definitely deserve to be on this list. And I was trying to give it a kind of a balance. I didn't want to make this video of all older fragrances, so that's why I featured fragrances from old days, from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then the 80s and things like that. But Baccarat Rouge 540 in the extract or in the original definitely deserves to be on this list. This has definitely become a very, very popular and iconic fragrance. It's so popular. It's been duped so much, and the stores tell me they can't keep these bottles in stock because people just buy them up so much. I can see that. Again, for me, it was not a love at first sniff, but it just totally grew on me, and I'm obsessed with the smell. Go figure. I think I'm obsessed with ambroxan. I really love ambroxan, and this one supposedly has ambergris, but for me, I get major ambroxan touches here with almonds, saffron, jasmine, musky, woody, accord, cedar wood, and I think there's a bit of a leatheriness in here as well from the saffron, and it's just a really delicious fragrance. Definitely deserves to be on the list. I know there's haters of this one. Some people say it's very feminine. For me, I don't know, it's ambroxan. It just smells like amber, woods, dusty, dry, musky, bit aquatic, marine, all kind of rolled into one with the ambroxan. And you've got the almonds in here, you've got the jasmine, of course the saffron throws in that kind of spice in there, but a bit leathery as well. Yeah, really, really great fragrance. Definitely deserves to be on the list. Anyway, those are the 10 iconic or very popular fragrances I wanted to highlight today of all time, as I said. I'm going to do a part 2 of this video, maybe a part 3, but stay tuned for a part 2. We'll talk about it in the bonus section, but let me know your thoughts on these fragrances first. What do you think about these fragrances? Let me know. Put a comment down, and let me know other fragrances as well. What do you consider iconic fragrances of all time, most popular fragrances of all time? I'd like to find out. Put a comment down. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So as I said, I'd like to do a part 2 of this video, and that's why I'm asking for you guys to throw out some suggestions that you guys think are definitely very iconic fragrances or very, very popular fragrances that have been around for a long time, or just a couple years ago that were launched or something, or even launched brand new, whatever. But I'm thinking of fragrances like Shalimar for sure. That definitely deserves to be on the list. Something like maybe Naxos from Xerjoff. But what other brands and what other fragrances? Maybe Rose 31 from Le Labo. I know that's pretty iconic, pretty popular, although Bergamot 22 can be. Maybe something like Ombre Narguilé from Hermes. I don't know. Tell me, put some comments down so I can find out. Yeah, like I said, stay tuned for another video very soon, a part 2 on this series of iconic and or very popular fragrances of all time. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.